But if you renounce your US citizenship, you're going to need a passport from another country. How does that work? How do you, if you want to walk us through how you actually give up the citizenship and the passport, and what do you actually replace it with? Which specific country are you, or countries are you planning to replace your US passport with?
Mhm. So first part about giving up your US passport, it's a really simple process and a very costly one at that. All you have to do is you have to go to a US embassy in another country. You can't do it in the US. All I have to do is walk in the US embassy in Kazakhstan.
Mm-hmm.
I can just apply for the US renunciation paper. It takes like maybe 10, 15 minutes to do. You make a phone call or you make an email for an appointment. You take the paper with you to the officer, the interview officer. He's just going to ask you some questions like, do you have enough money to survive, or why do you want to get rid of it, whatever. It's really short. What's supposed to happen is they're going to give you like 1 week or 2 weeks. You have to have a second interview. The second interview, you sign some papers, and then you give them your current passport. And in a normal country, that would be it. But for the US, you have to pay about $2,000 and something for an exit, like an exit thing.
Okay.
So you have to pay to give up your citizenship, right?
Right.
Once you do that, you're good to go. You walk out and you're no longer a citizen. Now, it doesn't matter if you have a citizenship of another country or not. That's not something they concern themselves with. The smart thing to do is to already have another country that's lined up that you want to, for example, be a citizenship of. So that way you'll be okay. Because you don't want to be stateless. You don't want to split up and you're not a citizen of anything, because that's a very bad situation. So if you're sure, for example, if you chose Kazakhstan, that you already have all your papers ready for being a Kazakh citizenship, right? And then you get rid of your US citizenship, because Kazakhstan, you're not allowed to have two citizenships anyway.
Mm-hmm.
Once you get that, then that's all you need. And then to answer your other question, like, if everything went my way, I would like to have minimum 2 citizenships, maximum 3. So it would be Russia, number 1, probably Japan, and maybe Thailand or Malaysia. So these 3 countries.
What are the requirements for you to become? You didn't mention Kazakhstan as one of the countries. You mentioned Russia, and based on the relationship between the countries, I'm sure that's a more all-encompassing passport to have. But so why Russia? And I guess my follow-up question is going to be this: if you become a Russian citizen, wouldn't that somehow make you a de facto enemy of the United States wouldn't it set up a red flag, you think? Not that they would, I guess they might still be monitoring you, but if you renounce your US citizenship to become a Russian, given that the general perception is that Russia and China and Vietnam are enemies of the US, wouldn't that flag you in some way negatively?
So to deal with the first question, why I chose Russia. So it took a lot of thought, but here's the thing. You have the former Soviet Union countries, Kazakhstan, Kyrgyzstan, Uzbekistan. All these countries were part of Soviet Union, right? Kazakhstan is just like Russia, almost exactly the same. Just in Kazakhstan, there's more Kazakh people than ethnic Russian people. Kazakhstan doesn't allow dual citizenship.
Dual citizenship, okay.
You're only allowed to have 1 citizenship. Russia, you're allowed to have as many citizenships as you want, as you can, as long as it's not an enemy, as long as the country is not hostile to Russia, right?
Okay.
Now, here's the thing. If you are a Russian citizen, because Russia has good partnerships with Kazakhstan, if you are a Russian citizen, you have a Russian passport, you are legally allowed to live in Kazakhstan without need of Kazakh citizenship.
And I imagine that applies to Kazakhstan and all of the other countries that were part of the former Soviet Union. Yes.
Not all of them.
Okay.
But for Kazakhstan, I know for sure because they have such close relations. So the Russian government and the Kazakh government made an agreement so that if you are from Russia or if you're a citizen of Russia, you can come into Kazakhstan, you can live there, you can buy a house, you can get a job without any kind of paperwork. It's like you're another citizen of Kazakhstan.
Okay.
So logically, it would make more sense that it's better to get the Russian citizenship. Plus, in addition, you get to have dual citizenship, you have the same rights as every other Russian person that was born in Russia. And overall, there's more opportunities in Russia than in Kazakhstan. Even though there's a lot of opportunities in Kazakhstan, there's a lot more in Russia has to offer, and you can still go to Kazakhstan and all the other places. So it just made more logical sense to choose Russia. And then the second answer to your other question, as long as you are not engaged in any conflicts with America, nothing will happen to you. But if, for example, if I knocked on the door of the military and say, hey, here's where all the US spies are, or here's this and here's that, and I tell them about that, then I would get flagged. It's seen as a defector or a traitor or as a treason, then I would get in trouble. But for everyday normal life, no, they wouldn't say anything.
I have a really interesting question that has to do with the visa waiver program that I'm familiar with, US visa waiver program. But what are the requirements for you to become a Russian citizen? Is there a residence requirement? What can you simply just pay? I know in some countries you can simply just pay a certain amount and all of a sudden your passport just magically appears for you. What do you have to fulfill in order to become a citizen of Russia, Thailand, and or Japan?
So each country has their own requirements. In general, it's all the same. You would have to come in as a worker or an entrepreneur.
Okay, right.
And if you can prove that you are able to contribute to the economy, which is, paying taxes, working, or if you have a special skill, like if you're a doctor or engineer or something like this, it'll be much easier. If you work at least 1 year, I believe they will give you permanent residency.
Okay.
Depending on the country.
Right.
And you can stay there. You can come and leave as much as you want. And if you stay there at least 5 years, then you can apply. But there's one thing. The easiest, fastest, painless way without doing all of that stuff, how to get a citizenship, you can get it in 2 or 3 years. It's just marry a local. That's
right.
Possible.
Right.
And like you said, I know in Kyrgyzstan, I know some guys where they went to a place, they paid some money, and it's like they're married, and they stayed for like a year, and they got the passport.
Right.
So,
one of the things that I found, and you might find this to be true as well, when I was in Vietnam, I investigated getting, either a passport or some sort of permanent residence so I could stay longer in Vietnam. Unfortunately, however, because my passport is Jamaican, and the reason I knew it was possible is because I ran into a fellow in Vietnam who's an American. And as a result, he was able to get, to just pay someone a couple of $100s and get the permanent residence, or I think that's what it was. but I wasn't able to do that simply because I only have a Jamaican passport. So one of the things that I would encourage anyone is, before you give up the US passport, and you probably could speak more about this, you could probably make your transition easier if you hold on to it long enough just to get approved for the other passports, if that makes sense. So, they may look more favorably on you because you have the US passport in order to grant permanent residence or citizenship. And then afterwards you can, renounce the US, since it's an emotional decision anyway, for the most part. But are you finding that to be the case? Is it easier to get dual citizenship in Thailand or Japan as a U.S. citizen? Is that anything that you looked into at any point?
One of the unfair privileges that I have, as the fact that I have this book,
right,
is that in general you're seen. It's like they see you as more trustworthy and someone responsible just because you have this. Or I met a lot of people, but they were like, "How long have you lived in Kazakhstan?" I said, "Oh, I've been here 2-3 years," and they were shocked. They were like, "Do you want to stay?" And I said, "If I could, yeah, I would like to." And everybody's telling me, "Oh, meet this person, talk to that person. This person can help you get this permanent residency. This person can help you get citizenship." And there's always a way to make this possible. And yes, because it's a well-known passport, a well-known country, it's easier for you to do this than someone from another country that doesn't have the popularity.
I know that the US has relationships with at least 40 countries that they have something called a visa waiver program. So other, first world countries in Europe and Japan as well, if you're a citizen of that country, you can come to the US and without needing to secure a visa in advance, and you can stay up to, I think, 30 days, 45 days, whatever. So it's always possible. If, for example, if you had a Japanese passport, you could easily come to the US anytime you want, if you needed to, without having to secure a visa. So the fact that you have one of those countries on your list is a good move, in my opinion, because, as I said, you might, for whatever reason, want to come back here. Maybe a friend in the US has a birthday or a wedding, and and you want to come back for whatever reason. You can always come back. You're not deprived of your access to the US should you need it at any point. So that's just something I threw out there for viewers who are watching, who might want to know, what if you want to come back, for relatives or something like that. But as you had said earlier, a lot of other countries have as much flexibility and freedom of access to other countries as the US passport holder does. So you're not really deprived of anything, by giving up the passport. Here on Saipan, I'm familiar with that, because we get visitors from China, from Russia, from Japan, from a lot of countries. So I've been answering questions like that for years in terms of, do I need a visa to enter Saipan since it's part of the US? And so I became familiar with the US visa waiver program. And there are 40 countries, that can come freely to the United States without having to secure a visa in advance. So when we come back, I'm going to ask you some questions submitted by various viewers.